Patrick, good seeing you, man. But look, two things I got to ask you. Number one, man, you have lost weight. You're looking good, my friend. And
Yes.
two, why is it that I always, every time I see you, I say that you've got the trimmest beard anybody could have? It's like it's perfect. If you ever remember the old school GI Joes with the beards, I always think of you like that, man. You're looking good, my friend.
I just did my beard actually for you actually.
Ah,
I trimmed it all up and I got it ready last night and yeah, it's pretty crazy. I was sick with COVID for a long time, about 9.5 months. I couldn't get rid of it.
what?
Yeah, it was brutal. I got it in January of this year, and my the guy that I work with on film a lot, I stayed home, Rudy. Like, I mean, I was home for a year and 2 months, and I, other than went to the grocery store, but never went anywhere. And yeah, one day we went out to do a political commercial, and we both caught COVID,
Oh my
and
god.
I couldn't get rid of it, and it was brutal. So when that went on for a long time, and just this whole things with it are brutal. Like people don't even realize. Like, I mean, I had the paramedics one night were here and they said, you better write letters to your mom because you're not going to make it. I couldn't breathe. And
Oh
it
my
got
god.
really, I never told anybody about that ever. I mean, I told them now, but not when I was going through it, not the time. I just thought, well, what's it going to do to call my mom and tell her, like I'm dying. Like I couldn't even talk. I was like, so it was a very it changed sort of changed my life really. And the at 5.5 months, the worst thing you get is you get vertigo. And I fell in my bathroom like 9 times one night. I didn't know where it was. Serious concussion. It's really a serious thing, people. And I really, really hope that people, take it seriously because it really is. And some people don't get sick, but some people, I was a healthy 45-year-old guy and I went overnight. I was like an 85, 90-year-old man. I couldn't get out of my bed. I couldn't do anything. And I stayed home because I didn't want to lose my voice.
Mhm.
And I lost my voice. I had to retrain my whole voice. I didn't know I was gonna be able to sing anymore, honestly. And you really think about those things like that when that happens to you. And it's kind of what in my body when it came back and I got my taste buds and everything changed. So it like doesn't want anything that's not healthy. So it was like the weight started dropping because I got really chunky in the beginning of I was eating, the pizzas and everything. And thank God I didn't get into the drinking, but the
Mm.
because I would probably be ballooned. But I was really, and I said to my girlfriend from CT, I said, "Why didn't you tell me I got?" She said, "Oh, I tried to," but so now I've been dropping the weight ever since I got back and back into sort of I'm still not 100% even still with working out and stuff, but it's so yeah, people, please, 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 think of somebody else before yourself, because this is what this disease does and this virus, whatever it is. I don't, it's a bizarre concept, but especially being a singer and a musician, you don't want to get this. I'm telling you.
Man, I'm so glad that you are recovering. That you sent shivers on me, man. It scared the hell out of me. I
Mm,
don't want to lose people like you, man. Like,
I
oh,
appreciate that.
I'm curious though. I was thinking when you were telling me your story, which is amazing. How do you feel now when you see on social media the anti-vaxxers, if you want to call them that, and the ones who like recently were protesting in front of hospitals, and you
Uh,
see it every once in a while on video where somebody is yelling at somebody else about, it's conspiracy, it's this, it's that, all these crazy things.
well, you know what? Those people are not freedom fighters or whatever the hell they call themselves. They're self-involved narcissists, in my opinion. They're very selfish. And I'm not sure what they're fighting for because they don't know. I actually know an artist who I worked with who she in a matter of months, she went over the edge and she's actually singing the anthem at those rallies now. That's her career. And I'm like, what are you doing? It's like I don't understand. There's certain liberties we do give up in civilized societies
Hmm.
to live, you know, in harmony, so to speak. I know we don't live totally in harmony, but we wear seatbelts, we follow speed limits. We there's things that we do that we subject ourselves to. If you don't want to abide by basic things like that, and they're such the mind, they're like not even what are they under 1%? Like they're just such a but part of the problem is the media glorifies it, and
Yeah.
they've got to stop doing that. And I said, I talked to a lot of my friends in the media, and I said, why are you're talking about that? Why aren't you talking about the fact that Mr. O'Toole got up, and I hounded him during the election, and about he's the big tent party, whether you're black or brown or LGBT, and then let 62 members of parliament vote to not ban conversion therapy. It's like in 2021. I hounded the guy every press conference I was at, man, every morning, to the point my friends in the media are like, you're unbelievable. You're like changing the narrative. And I said, well, somebody has to. I said, I get, when I got an email, Rudy, years ago, I can't remember how many years ago, from a 19-year-old boy in Pennsylvania. And he told me, I just heard about you today. And he said, I was in my bedroom with a gun in my mouth. And you saved my life. You gave me the courage to come out. And I thought, wow, because I never thought what I was doing when I came out in country music all those years ago. And the end of, I guess it was the end of 2001. I got offered a big multi-million-dollar deal. And I didn't really think about it. I just was raised to live my virtue and my truth and be honest and be like a Christian, a novel thought, like a real Christian, like a Jesus Christian. And it's funny you have to even say that. But so I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I think that we're all put here for how and who we are, for a purpose. I believe that there's no coincidence that there's 7.5 billion, wherever many humans that are here, and we're all unique entities, no copies, no clones. So we're pretty sure we're put here to be who we are and how we are, and who the heck is any other human to tell any other human being they're not allowed to be who they are or how they are. That's their basic human right. That's their guaranteed right as being a human on this planet. And nobody has the right to tell anybody else they can't be who they are. Like, who are you? Why are you better? Like we do with the races, what we do with my community. It's like, I'm really proud of the thing we're doing with Carlos Morgan and a bunch of other people at SAC. And we're sitting on a diversity and equity board right now. And I tell you, it is, you can probably speak to this, Rudy, more than on that side of it. But, I bring a unique perspective in too, because, there's still 71 countries in the world that either have killed the gay bills or anti-gay bills on them right now. And people think everything's fine. Well, no, it's not. And I feel like sometimes the social injustice that went on with people in your community, Black people and marginalized First Nations, like, don't even get me started on that. I am so infuriated about that and those children. And I have flashbacks because my cousins grew up on the Squamish Nation. And I remember those elders crying. I didn't know what it was about, but I know what it was about now, and I don't know what we're going to do. But the only thing I said to Zoe over there, and then when I met Carlos, and you probably know Carlos, but
Yeah.
he's won Juno after Juno's a guy, and same thing, not getting any respect or any, and it's like, what is that all about? Like, we have to do better. And I think we're only going to do it if we're together. If we're not united on things, I don't know how we get to the other side. And if we go so far one way, how do we get back? It really worries me. Like, especially in my community, like, we're segregating ourselves now from each other. And it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. But, when you're not allowed to go to certain events as a queer person, that to me, I don't know I can't reconcile that. I can't.
I know. I hear you loud and clear, man, which is why I've always made sure that throughout my career, I never sat myself in a box. I did things that I wasn't expected to do. And it was
Mm-hmm.
because I knew I could. And I knew that people have died to make sure that I could do that. And I made
Very.
sure it happened. I'm curious about something else too, man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how did you get your voice back? Because that's
Oh,
your bread and butter. That's your money maker.
yeah. I had the fortunate of Lisa Thompson, who's a amazing vocal teacher, one of the best in Canada. And she was actually Drake Jensen, who I did the duet with, his vocal coach. And she fit me in, and he was giving me all these other exercises. And she's like, no, 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 you're not, you have to go back and do like like I had to start from scratch, man. And then I went into the studio. We're doing a cover of, I'm doing a covers 70s 80s duet record right now, and it's the first single is going to be Lost in Love, the Air Supply, Lost
Oh,
in Love,
in
Drake
love.
Benson.
Yeah, yeah, great
And
song.
so I go into the studio, and my producer Lee, and we're used to being, and I'm used to being doing, one take. It's like I've been doing this for, since I was 14. It's like, and I go in and my voice was just not, it was so dry, and I couldn't reach anything that I used to. And I go in and I thought I was better, right? I thought, oh, I can do this now. And I go in and I just see Lee looking he's just like not trying to look at me in the booth, right? He's like,
Mm.
oh no, like it was terrible. And then when I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh. And I tried, I think 4 times, and I like over and waited weeks in between, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't get back. And then finally, I don't know what changed, but something happened, and I kept doing the exercises that Lisa gave me, and I kept, it's almost like retraining yourself to, like there's so many things. Like my memory I had no memory. I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't remember the alphabet. I couldn't text. It was really, really bad. Like this thing it is cruel. Like it is really a cruel thing. But the positive, the light at the end of the tunnel was, because I'm like you, I always did things too. You can't do that. I'm like, you just watch me,
Mhm.
like, like I've done things at the fair. I ended up with the Fairmont and Air Canada and Cadillac as my brand sponsors. And they're like, how do you do that? And I'm doing like in the penthouse of the Fairmont Hotel Vancouver with Ballet BC and Patrick Massey and Kendall Gender, the drag queen, and it's just like, and people are like, how do you end up in these? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, it's just, you kind of go where your destiny leads you, because I believe life is about fate and destiny. I don't believe in luck or fluke or coincidence. And I think a lot of people sell themselves short,
Yeah.
and I think that they need to just follow your passion, follow your gut, trust yourself. That's all
But
you really have is yourself. When you
but
think
what
about it.
but what was the fear like for you
Oh,
though? And not just losing, feeling like that maybe you'll never get your voice back because, as we know, Shania Twain had to go through
oh man.
training. What happened to her throat? The late Whitney Houston, she could
Mm-hmm.
never hit the notes that she did before she passed. What was it
Oh
like for
man.
you? Not just to have that fear, but also the fear that you and I wouldn't even be having this conversation because, you know, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah. It's, it really, it's funny when you're going through something like that and you're so sick that you don't really realize, I guess, how big of a deal it really is until you're on the other side of it.
Mhm.
And but then I just came to terms. I remember my friend Mike, who got sick too with me, my business partner in a lot of aspects, and he started calling me every night, and I thought, why are you calling me? He said, because I don't know if we're gonna wake up. And I was like, wow, I just, it's kind of one of those things that you're like, whoa, and it really, it just changes your perspective on life. And I've been through a lot, like losing my dad, and my brother had a accidental overdose 8 years ago, and it really shook me. But this really, I think, and I guess, honestly, that was one of the only things that really, if I did, was I would get to see my brother again. Like it was my dad and stuff like that. But it just, what I did is I decided that I was gonna, when I got out of that night and I started to turn the corner, I thought, I'm gonna use this time that I have, because you know how normally with this business, we're crazy. We're always on the road, or
Yeah.
we never have a moment. We don't sit in stillness. And I really encourage people to sit in stillness and stay home. I did this 2-week challenge after, one of the Vancouver Canucks retested positive again a year later, and I was so scared of, and of catching. And this was like after I'd already had it, and I'm still now, like I almost have, like, therapist thinks PTSD. I'm afraid to leave my house a lot. Like I'm so afraid of this thing that I mean, it's weeks and weeks go by and I don't even leave my house. It's like, but I'm getting out of that now, and I'm starting to push myself. And because, it's like, people can't not, what would I
Yeah.
do? What would I do if I couldn't see people? And that's the one thing I think I really miss the most about performing and all that. And, people, we're on the verge of losing a generation of artists in this country right now. And I don't think people are aware of how serious it is for some musicians and artists. And, there's almost 150,000 artists in this country, and we're virtually all out of work. And if we all are out of work, what happens then? And I say, like, we're the envy of the world when we tour as Canadian musicians, because we nurture, foster, and promote music in this country through the grants, through everything. And we really need to think about that. It's why I started that hashtag, helping artists Canada. And if you can send them an email transfer, but at least call your friends, reach out to your friends that are artists, and ask them if they're okay, because I know a lot of them don't have any food. Some of them are talking about taking their lives. They're that worried. They don't know what to do. And I don't, we've sort of been left out in the cold again. And I don't get it. We're always there for people. Your fundraisers, your charity, and we always will be, because that's part of our job. But, when we're down and out, it's difficult, and there's even some of the programs, that are supposed to be going to artists. They're not going to them, and if I didn't have a manager that was on top of that stuff. My manager, well, she's not my manager. No, I don't know. Well, she always will be as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's really scary. So I don't know if you've heard from people too. You must, Rudy.
Yeah.
But it's tough right now. And I don't know how. We've got to get to the other side of this, because, if we don't have those artists, we drive everything. Like, people don't realize, 70,000 Canadians, and that's probably on this low end, are employed by live music. Just live music brings over $3.5 billion into the GDP. That money's not coming in right now. And that's a lot of money. $500 million alone in Vancouver in 2019 by live music. That's a huge amount of money that we drive into. And I don't think people realize it. They don't. Arts and culture is what they say the fourth largest industry in Canada. And when we go abroad or we go wherever and we get grants, our job is to drive music tourism back to where we came from. And that's what we do. We're like walking billboards.
Yeah, absolutely true with that, man. I'm just curious too. Once you got your voice back and everything else, but being very cautious about leaving your home and everything, how did you record music then? Especially
Well,
too, because studios were either opening or closing. You're allowed this person, that person. Like, how did you do that?
we had started the single that's out now, Let's Ride. We had done it quite a few years ago, actually. I did it with Bobby and Sammy from Kuya, and it was my first sort of introduction into. I was doing really traditional country music, so much that country's like, you're too country for country, and it was like, because I love the steel guitar and the fiddle.
Sorry, wait, back that up. Can you say what you just said again?
Oh yeah. Oh, I heard it all the time, man.
You're
I was doing really twangy, like really traditional country. I grew up on that stuff, and I
okay,
love that stuff. And country radio, because they went, when country went to new country,
right,
everything changed. It was called new country. It
right. I
wasn't.
remember that.
And the whole industry changed in I guess it was really at the end of the 80s into the 90s, really, when it started, like when Garth Brooks got on the scene. But Garth was always very traditional, but there was a lot that whole sort of. And then the thing was, then the women came in and they were dominating. And that's something that really, I was when I came out, I got virtually pushed out overnight. But when they started doing that to the women in country, and all that stuff, and there's virtually not a lot of women still played on country radio to this day.
True.
Because of what happened. And I started a whole thing when I started my TikTok, because I had never been on TikTok, and I thought, how am I gonna, it's a young demographic. So I decided that and I did put out a challenge, and I still haven't seen one of them to any of my male counterparts. I had a thing where I lip synced to all female country recording artists, and I started lip syncing to them and doing them, and putting out the hashtag play more women on country radio. And I'm telling you, Rudy, so many of them reached out to me, like huge stars are like, they're like, thank you. And I put, kept all the Canadians in there. So I did, and I've just started it again last night, and I can't believe I even did this. I'm like, I'm so much brave. Like, I've been brave, I guess, when I don't even think of myself that way, but I did last night. I started, the YouTube shorts.
Mm.
I did my version of the Faith Hill Breathe on my bed. It's like, oh, so if you guys think I've lost it, I probably have, but I just think that I valued, and always the women were, I was more attracted to women singers anyways in my life, and I love their lyrics, and I can't believe that, because I think that they were, the creme de la creme. I loved the female singers in country. I still do. I still listen to all of them. And I went all the way back to like, Stand By Your, and all the way up to, high school. What's it? Hey Homecoming. But I changed to Hey Homecoming King, because I think that's another big thing, because I'm always trying to raise awareness about what's really going on with men in our society, because there's a lot of issues with men, and it's the whole title track of my last record, mend the man. If there's nobody there to build the boy, who's going to mend the man?
True.
And and I'm doing all those videos. I'm doing one video for every song on my last record. I've just been trying to keep busy and get content out there. And, just sort of, I never had the means to do that stuff when I, back in the day, because I was never allowed in to anything. I was never even, the granting. So they were like, we couldn't promote your lifestyle. Like, what if kids saw, like, these are grant. And just I'm still dealing with that, the homophobia. And it's like, it blows my mind. One of them 3.5 weeks ago accused me of fraud and lying on an application. And I'm just like, wow, telling me stuff I didn't do it. And now their new word is, you're not viable. What does that mean? I think an openly gay male country artist who's still around 23 years later, who's still played on internationally, who headlines Vegas and Mexico City, I think I'm as an indie artist, pretty viable. But I'll tell you, Rudy, it was the first time since my early career that I saw myself up with the majors with this single, and like up front porch, and they've been fantastic. And Soundcheck Entertainment, and some of these I've never been put in the, it's like Sean Austin was the day before, and then Patrick Masse in that, and it's very humbling to get that happen to you like this late in your career. But it's almost like I never thought what I did was such a big deal, because I always like looked at Katie Lang, right, in 1992. I mean, she inspired everybody, and I looked up to her so much, and she gave me the courage. She held that door open. 10 years later, I walked through. And when he came to me in the summer about doing this, the history of wanting a pride, and I said, oh, you want to do a pride for 1 month and then that's it, how? And he said, no, I don't. And I said, well, you got to tell the real story, really what happened, because 3 Canadian country artists were the ones who really opened the doors. Katie Lang, myself, and Drake Jensen. We came out long before most people did. And I don't think a lot of people knew that story. And and then things like the Canadian Country Music Association, they do their first pride and they don't ask, I don't care about me, you didn't ask Katie Lang? Like, come on, like, that's not right. So I'm working on a thing where we're going to do a show coming up with, I'm hoping it goes, if the granting people, but they're supposed to be giving us the money now. Finally, your guys' community and ours, finally, so I'm hoping we're putting together a show if it works out with her and Drake Jensen and Dorje and a whole bunch of, it's going to be a really good event, because she was going to retire. And I don't know if it was for certain, but I heard rumors that it was about how upset she was about what happened. And I thought, there's no way I can let that woman leave this industry feeling like that. So, but you know what the cool thing is, Rudy? I didn't even know this because I never looked behind me, but there's hundreds of queer country artists now. And there was Katie and me when I started. And it blows my mind to think, wow, I'm shocked,
Doors
and
are
a lot of
opening.
Canadians.
Doors are opening. You kind of already mentioned it before, but I'm going to ask again, what's the name of the new single and what lyrically is about? Because I think it reminds me more of, when I listen to the song, I think of 1975 for some reason, because it sounds like
That's
that
the year
kind
I
of
was
country.
born.
There you go.
That's my label. I called it Y75 for yellow, or year 75. It's kind of funny you say that. Well, it's interesting. The single's called Let's Ride, and it's out everywhere you can, get music these days, and all the streaming platforms and all that stuff. And I have a site that you can hear everything on it. It's kind of a cool site I've been with CD Baby. Thank God for stuff like that, back, because it was the only outlet for artists, that were underrepresented. And it's so I've been with them, I think, since 2001, but they have a whole new concept. They call it the Here Now.com. And so you can go to patrickmassey.herenow.com and you can hear everything going back. and all my music. I just released my first EP that had never, it went, my first in 1998. The first EP I ever released it went top 10 in a lot of parts of Canada and around the
Mm.
world. It was out of nowhere, an indie record. And so I just finally released that digitally as well. So there's all this new music. So if you go there, you can hear everything that's so far that's out there. And the concept really was, I remember I got a call from my manager and she said, you need to come to Toronto and you have 3 days and you need to write 3 hit songs. And these guys they don't know you and they're a little bit apprehensive and they never worked with a country singer or a gay artist. I said, well, I've probably worked with a gay artist because there's lots of them, but maybe they're just, and so it was kind of funny because I went into the studio and Bobby was in there first with T, the engineer, and he's like, he puts up they had worked with Nelly,
Oh,
the
cool.
rapper, and
Yeah.
he puts up the Florida Georgia line,
Yeah.
and Nelly have done this cruise song. So Bobby puts it up on the big screen and he says, "This is the #1 song in the country. We have to write a song just like this." And so I'm thinking like, okay, like, and I'd never written that way before, just to go in and I'd always done writing in Nashville is very 9 to 5. It's very different. It's a job, like a job, right? You're not sitting in the studio, you're sitting in a room writing. Like it's like a bizarre concept. But so then Sammy shows up and we're sitting there and we start and I could tell he was a bit nervous, right? And I think we wrote that song in 45 minutes in the end. It
Really?
just went boom. And then he turns to me, he's like, "Do you want to do a whole record?" And I laughed and we laughed. So it's kind of ironic how it got delayed because it was basically I went through a nervous breakdown and my manager actually did. We from the all the stuff going on and stuff in this industry and and the way that she was treated, for being a Black female manager in Canada.
Mhm.
And it's a lot of props to Bev, for what but we kind of I stepped out for a couple of years there. I was not well before I got COVID. And but then it's kind of ironic now that we delayed the song almost 5 years because the line in it is, I'm going to sit back in my brand new Hummer, and now the electric Hummer is coming out next year. So we are going after GM now. We've been pitching them to do. I put these little Hummer commercials together myself, been putting them out, and I said so. I'm hoping that Bobby and Sammy said they're going to talk to their publishers. So everything happens for a reason, Rudy. I
Yes, it
truly
does.
believe that. And, synchronicity is alive and, things happen for a course of action for a reason. There's no, it's just
It's
the
like
way that
you. It's like when
yeah.
you and I met at the Junos. It was the
Yeah, it
same
was, but
same
even
thing.
that wasn't one of those things you talked about. Here I'm this country singer who's the only person, and everyone's like, "Why the hell is this guy being interviewed at the hip hop?" But it was like, well, that was my life. I ended up on a hip hop like management roster with Divine Brown and all those, people in Jordan and Drew, and I was like, and everyone's like, "What is wrong? What's going on here?"
Which goes back to what we said about we can go anywhere we want.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
that's the
and
exact same thing, my friend. As we're slowly wrapping this up, though,
yeah.
performances. Will you do any virtual performances at least?
Yeah, I've done a lot. I did a lot in the early pandemic. I really because a lot of the pride I was doing a lot of prides. I was scheduled to do a lot in small towns, and I really made a focus on small towns in the last probably quite a few years. I'd done couple of big ones. Like I did Seattle. Wow, man, 400,000 people,
Whoa.
unbelievable party. But I so when the brakes came off of everything and everything stopped, I called Mike, my friend, the one who we ended up getting sick together. But I said to him, "Would you? There's not a ton of money. They don't have any money in it. I'll pay you what my fees are, or whatever. But would you help me do these virtual prides for them? And we'll give them to them as a gift. So like Smithers and Surrey and all these other, because especially in small towns, like that's all those people have all year. They look forward to that. So we put together a lot of them, and then we ended up working on a lot of different ones, and we did and then like I was on the board of the BC Country Music Association during that time, so Mike and I ended up producing that virtual awards show, and we did a lot of different things over the course, and I was learning the back end, and I had started sort of going into the other side of the business, right? Because I run my label that I started when I was going to talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind, Y75 Records. I started that as a self-producing label because nobody would work with me without conditions. And so I thought that's all it would ever be. but now it's expanding, and I just signed two other, the Moonshine Mollies and the Cat Murphy Band, and I'm expanding it into underrepresented artists, and that's basically what this label's all about. And I
That's
only have
great.
one prerequisite with it: if you have talent, you'll get a chance. Like, what an interesting thought, hey? Like, it's funny how, but it's kind of starting to resonate. And now that the granting programs that I've been fighting for 15 years to recognize our community and grant us are starting to fund, so it's kind of a really cool time. And it's not only about my community, but like the Moonshine Mollies, they're middle-aged women starting their career, and hey, and they're not a size zero, and they don't have to be. And if people have issues with that kind of stuff, then they can take it up with us. But I'm not dealing with that crap anymore in this business. We need to do better in this business. We objectify women, we push people out, we're anybody that's not, I hate to say this, and it's straight white, because I'm a queer white man. I'm not in that crowd. I've never been. And
Mhm.
they've made it very clear that I'm not, right? Probably similar to you, but it doesn't mean we're going to go away. Like, do you think we're going away now? No, no.
No, no,
It's like,
no, no.
I mean, what you've done, Rudy. I mean, you're all over the map. Like even in country, like there's how many black guys in country? JoJo and a couple others, and you're everywhere. Like, it's
I,
like,
like I said, man, I always do my best. And like I said, I've never put myself in a box. So just like
no,
you, my friend, this has
yeah,
been an amazing conversation, but at the same point,
yeah.
amazing single. Congratulations
Oh,
on
thank
that,
you
man.
so much. Yeah,
And
I'm
you know
really.
what? I hope you're writing a book or you're doing a video
I
diary
actually
because I
am right now.
good because I
Yeah,
think everything that you've told me, I think this is going to be something
yeah.
really important that needs to be documented.
It's starting with actually my friend who's well, he's the best unofficial publicist I've ever had. But he said, I think you should write starting with COVID and going back.
Yeah.
And so it's called Living Through Light, because I've always chosen the light. And all with everything that's been thrown at me, and you have to, because you'll go insane. And you have to laugh a lot. And I remembering stuff like, wow, the book's gonna be, I mean, stuff like, it will be in the book. But what I said to Tammy when I opened for her, and I was like, wow, I can't even believe. And I remember the farmer's daughter was standing there like, who is this? And I'm like, who was the only one on a bus though? Me. And
I
I
love
worked
it.
with those ladies years later. It was funny. I said, you guys are real just like making me stand out in the heat, wouldn't let me on your bus. I said, come on. But it's funny how things come full circle.
It does. Look,
And my
man.
first gig when I was after I kind of came out was with them at the gay rodeo in Calgary, and they kind of helped me restart. It's ironic how things happen. It's always like my first manager said, always be nice to everybody when you're on your way up, because they'll probably be passing you on the way down.
Which is the absolute truth. Brother,
You
thank you
have to
so
be.
much. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for the
Thank
interview,
you.
man. Please, please, please be safe and take care of yourself. I want to be
I
able to
will.
do another interview, but I want to do it in person, hopefully the next time.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much, Rudy. Talk to you soon.